On April 14th of this year, an unarmed South African man named Lindani Myeni was shot and killed by police in Honolulu, Hawaii. This reportedly began when Mr. Myeni arrived at a house. He took off his shoes and entered the home. Apparently confused by the interaction, he quickly leaves and repeatedly apologized to the tourists who were in the home. This all took place at night, and a man and a woman, both reportedly a couple, were staying at this multi-unit home, according to lawyers. According to the doorbell footage, that's when Myeni arrived at the home wearing a face mask and was later seen with his phone and headband in his left hand. The woman inside the home called 911 and told a 911 operator that Myeni had no weapons in his hands. In the video, you can hear him repeatedly saying, "I'm sorry." The footage also shows him putting his shoes back on and getting ready to leave. As the couple was still on the phone, the man tells someone calmly that Myeni apologized and left. And then that's when the police arrived. The woman in the video is heard yelling, "That's him." An officer commands Myeni to get on the ground immediately, and he responds with a question, "Who are you?" I'm going to sort of explain that later on. Shortly after her husband was shot and killed, shortly after her husband was shot and killed, his wife filed a wrongful death lawsuit. And in that lawsuit, it states that Myeni most likely mistook the house as a regular community gathering center open to the public. In the video, Lindani Myeni is seen ignoring the officer's commands and appears to be confused. According to the family lawsuit, they said that Myeni would not have known the people shining the bright lights at him were officers. And if you watch that video, that's true. The officer didn't even identify himself. He just said, "Get on the ground now." I mean, just step back. Just think about this for a second from like just a random person. If someone's yelling at you to get on the ground now, I mean, and they don't identify themselves as law enforcement, I mean, what are you supposed to do with that information? Reportedly, there are screams because Myeni then attacks the officer, but he does not know that is an officer, just this random guy yelling at him to get on the ground. So if you don't identify yourself, how are we supposed to know who you are? The officer then yelled, "Taser, taser, taser," and proceeded to tase Myeni. After that, you can hear a male voice yell, "Shoot him," upon which the officer deploys and fires his weapon. A male voice then says, "F you," we think he's talking to Myeni there, and the officer fires 3 more shots. Altogether, 4 shots were fired. If you would like to watch the full video of this unfolding, I will link that in the description of this episode. The full videos there, not only the doorbell footage, but also the footage of that horrific and tragic shooting. Mr. Myeni and his wife had just moved to Hawaii 3 months prior to the shooting, where she actually grew up. Her which would be the wife there. The couple believed that, unlike other U.S. states, Myeni and their 2 Black children would be safe from discrimination because of Hawaii's diversity. She has now filed a wrongful death lawsuit. This is Lindsay Myeni, Mr. Myeni's wife, has now filed a wrongful death lawsuit, alleging that the officers were motivated by racial discrimination because her unarmed South African husband was Black. The now retired police chief in question here is Susan Ballard, and she claims that despite the widow's allegations of racism, the skin color was not a factor in this case. The mayor of Honolulu, Rich Blengardi, said in a statement that, quote, "Mr. Myeni's death is tragic," end quote. The lawyer representing the Myeni family and the widow recently held a press conference on the shooting. This was just in late April.
He is a peaceful, law-abiding person with no criminal record, a father of 2, and now he's gone because HPD did not follow Hawaii law, did not follow its own procedures, and this was a wrongful death.
Still too many unanswered questions, and the family attorney's appeal for the release of the 911 tapes, the computer-assisted dispatch tapes, Myeni's cell phone, wedding ring, and the complete body cam footage from police, all falling on deaf ears.
They attacked him first. Why do I say that? Because if you shine a powerful light in someone's face and point a gun at them and tell them to get on the ground, and you don't tell them you're a police officer, that is an assault and a use of force in the law in Hawaii. And a use of force is never justified except by a police officer who announces himself and announces his purpose. That didn't happen here. So Mr. Myeni did not attack them. He defended himself from unknown assailants who were coming to get him with bright lights and a gun.
An angry Bickerton also dismissed the police narrative that this incident had nothing to do with race.
One of the things that we believe very strongly about this case is that if I had been in that mistaken position, if I had been there where someone didn't want me to be and the police came, that is exactly how they would have addressed me. But you can hear it in the tone of the officer addressing a black man, treating him like he is nothing. Get on the ground. Not even worth being given the information that I am a police officer. It's outrageous. And I think we're all at risk.
As previously reported, they reiterated that the property where Mr. Myeni was killed was not a home, but a public accommodation that advertised its rooms on Instagram and Airbnb, with a temple situated right next door. That Mr. Myeni took off his shoes and went inside points to their theory that he might have confused the property for the temple.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Myeni's widow dismissed any notion that this was a burglary gone wrong.
They've been saying it's a burglary to a house, and I'm like, this whole story makes zero sense. Why would you burglarize on someone when you have money and when you have everything you need and you were just with your wife the whole day? You're gonna come with a 12-minute robbery or something? That makes... I felt like that was a very childish move by the police department to cover up whatever they're hiding. So anyway, I had spoke to him. That was at 7:52. I looked back on my call log. That was 7:52. I didn't find out till the next morning, but the police reports that I saw said 8:10. He was already dead with 4 bullets in him. So tell me how 18 minutes you just leave your husband and you just get off the phone with him and he's so close to your house. You're like 5 blocks from my house. You couldn't just, why, whatever reason he stopped by, you couldn't just let him go home. What? He was in his car. You approached him. Let him go home.
Honolulu police earlier said they viewed the shooting as justified and that the 3 officers involved who suffered injuries were fighting for their lives.
I saw the deputy chief say, "We are proud of these brave men." And I asked myself, really? Are you going to take this tape back to the academy and train another generation of police officers that this is how you make a stop? Get on the ground. Don't tell them you're a cop. Is that really what Hawaii is coming to? When we see this, do we have any wonder why this is the 2nd shooting in a month? This is the mentality.
The SABC has requested an interview with the Honolulu Police Department, but has received no response to our request. Sherman Bricepies, SABC News, New York.
That reporting there was from April, to not confuse anyone about the releasing of body cam footage there. That body cam footage has now been released after public pleas and just a horrific situation there. And there are many questions here as for the conduct of the officers involved. Last week, the Honolulu Police Department pledged more public transparency, but we will see what happens. Civil rights activist and president of the National Action Network, Al Sharpton, said in a statement just last week, quote, Lindani Myeni's killing is yet another sensational racialization and criminalization of an innocent unarmed black man at the hands of police not following in the law and proper police procedures, end quote.